So I've got some clay. I've got a turntable, which if you have is awesome. If you don't, it works all right without one. I've got a rolling pin. I've got a fettling knife. I've got my scoring tool, and I've got some slip. I also have a bat, but any kind of flat surface that you can use to take your piece off your banding wheel or your turntable, whatever you want to call it, to move it so you're not constantly taking this up so someone else can use it when you're not in class or if you're in a shared studio. So first thing I did is I did roll out a slab and I cut my base. It's about almost maybe a 1/2 inch thick, my base. Not quite, but I don't want to make it too thin. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to roll out some coils. I like to take my clay and kind of shape it into a little coil-ish shape first, so it's a little more round. And then I work with mostly my fingertips into this part of my hand, rolling back and forth. Start in the center, and I work my way out. It's not perfectly round, that's totally fine. It's not going to mess your piece up. When I'm beginning, as a beginning student, I like to tell my students to make it about the width of my finger. You know, you don't want it too thin. If it's too thin as you start to build, it's either going to start to flap or going to start to crack, and you're going to get frustrated. So I'm going to make a couple coils here, just so I have them ready. You can kind of hear that it's not quite round. You can always smush it a little bit and try to make it more round. But like I said, it really doesn't matter as long as you have a nice thick or nice even width consistency. You don't want it super thin in one spot and real fat in another spot. So I think that's good to start. So I like to tell my kids that when you're first starting out, remember you want to score and slip your first coil onto your slab. Now I'm going to use my turntable here. I'm going to put my bat on here, and here's my slab. So I'm going to take my scoring tool. You can see this is going to make life so much easier, that you can turn it as you work around. That's all nice and scored. I'm going to take one of my coils and I'm going to score this. Okay. Ooh, nice and scored. I'm going to take my slip and put it on my slab. Sure, it's nice and thick on there. Now I'm going to take my coil and I'll push down the score side into where it's scored here on my slab. So there I've made one ring. And then I like to take my coil here, and I do put my other hand on the outside, so just to give it a little bit of stability. And I'm going to take some of the clay, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here, I'm going to blend it down like this into the neck. So I'm literally pushing some of the clay onto my slab on the bottom. I always like to have, now I'm brace to the outside and I smooth this out so you can't really see it all, and you got a nice bottom there. I always want to score, slip, and then blend that first coil in. I think it makes it so there's a stronger bond. The bottom is really important, especially if you want to use your vase or whatever you're building out of this for any kind of water, food, or anything. You want it to make sure it's going to be nice and tightly sealed there at the bottom. So you can see that's what it looks like. So now that I've started this, I'm not going to score and slip again. What I have been taught and what I teach my students is you're going to, once you've scored that first coil on, if it's fresh to fresh, you can blend it. If it's fresh to old, meaning I walked away for a half hour and it was sitting out, I closed up for the day and I'm coming back tomorrow, then I'm going to score and slip that. So fresh to fresh, I can just blend. Fresh to old, I do need to score and slip. So as I go, what I'm doing is, like I pushed that other clay into, and let's see if I can move this closer to the camera so you can kind of see what I'm doing here, is I'm pushing this coil, this part of the clay, I'm pushing it into the coil below it. You see the coil turns a little bit as I go. This turntable really helps to keep your momentum going. And I've made it back so you can see here where I pushed it down. And some people, depending upon what you want the outside to look like, they will stop and they will make their coils so they have nice, even, circular lines all the way around. I don't normally leave my pots or anything I build with coil method, which is pretty much how I build anything by hand. I don't like this look. I like to smooth it out. So because I usually smooth it out, I'll just continue going until I run out of coil. I'll take my next coil and I'll keep going. And then I like to come in and I'll brace the outside. And whether, depending upon whether or not you're going to see the inside of your piece, if it's going to be a vase or a bowl or a cup or anything like that, you may want to smooth it out. If it's going to be something else where eventually you're going to close it and no one's ever going to see the inside of it, you can leave the fingerprints in there. It's really a matter of personal aesthetics. Okay. There, I kind of smoothed out the inside of my pot. Ooh, the light in here is not so good. But so there's my pot. And then I would just keep going. Okay. So, a couple things to think about when you're creating. Not everyone wants their pot to be, or whatever they're making, straight up and down. If that is your goal, then you want to put coils right on top of each other. Okay, so I'm going to split this one in half. So if I want to continue to go straight up and down, I'm going to lay, you can see the coil is right directly on top of the other one. Lined up nice and neat. And blend it in here. And that's how I'll build it straight up. If I want it to start to flare out, and you can switch no matter where you are, I'm going to line this up more to the outside like that. So you can see part of that rim from the previous coil and this on the inside. And if I do that, then I tend to use this coil from below and blend that in. And that's going to help. You can see it's starting to come out a little bit here. We'll do another one just to kind of line it up again. So it was sitting on the outside portion of it. Smooth it out. And you can see it's starting to flare out. And as you build, you can go in and out. Now, if I want it to start to go in, I'm going to take my coil and I'm going to put it on the inside. Can you see here? Oh, it's so dark. Where I can see part of this coil below it, and it's more on the inside of it. And then I would blend that in, and I can do another one that's similar to that. So you can see now this part started, oop, there we go. That one part's going in because I put my coils towards the inside of it. And this one's starting to go out because I lined them up on the outside. And then this one's straight up and down because I lined them right up on top. Okay. And I always try to, when I'm blending, put support again, opposite of where I'm blending. Okay. You can always fill those places in later. If you want to leave holes, you can. If you want to smooth this all out, you can. Some people like to put decorative things in their coils. So maybe I want to, let's see, find my metal rib. I know you're in here somewhere. Some wooden. And I know this is the opposite side. I'm a righty. But I can smooth all this out. You see I'm bracing the inside. You can see that I've smoothed out with my metal rib. I tend to wait just a little bit longer. I don't do it right away. I like to let it sit in the air for a little bit, makes it a little bit stiffer, and it's not, I don't know, it doesn't mush the same way, and I can find I can get a smoother surface that way. So you can see I've smoothed some more coil. Nice and go this way, nice and smooth. My coils again. So say in this area I wanted something decorative. I've rolled out another coil. I'm gonna roll up this cute little S thingy. And I can take one side and I can kind of blend it together. And this will go on the inside of it so it stays together. And then here. And then I'll blend it in here on the inside. But on the outside, I've got a nice little decorative portion. So there's a lot you can do, and then you would just work coils around it. You can either build up until you get to this height. And then once you get there, And then you could smooth all the rest of that out and no one will know. Just like that. And you could come back, you know, and clean that up a little bit later once it's a little bit closer to leather hard. That's when you can come back and smooth it all. So that's pretty much the basics of it. The more you do it, the better you'll get with coils. Like I said, I try to keep them, you know, even that's a little bit too thin to me. Like here's my finger. Because you want to be able to have enough so you can blend into the next coil. When it's too thin, it'll get floppy, or it may crack. You'll get super frustrated and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Take your time. This is something too that I know a lot of people like to build really fast and really high, and then it just kind of gets all floppy and they get all, I don't know, like you need to let it rest for a little bit. If you build too high too fast, it's just too much. The clay's still kind of wet. So if you build, you know, I could probably build it like here, maybe a little bit taller, see where it is, let it sit for a little bit, go, you know, take a sip of coffee or whatever it is that you drink at school. And then I would come back and I probably would score and slip. As I started, like this piece here that I've started earlier today. You can see you can do any kind of shape whatsoever. It's been sitting. So if I wanted to add this coil, I'm going to score my piece here, score my coil, add some slip. And then add my coil. And then once I went all the way around, then once I got back here, since it would now be fresh on fresh, I could just not score and slip and continue to build. Don't forget, I'm going to do this. Put it in. Ooh, like that. So, happy coiling.